members of the committee that are on the call? Would you like to identify yourselves?
Sure. Stephanie Turman.
Morning, Stephanie.
Good morning.
Is Jessica on? Okay, is Gorick on? Okay, are there other members of the board that would like to identify themselves?
Austin Davis is here.
Jeff Letwin.
Hey, John, Jerry
Jen
DeLonsworth.
Oh, and Jen. Hi.
Michelle Smianek, good morning.
Okay, good morning, folks. And I think so there's two of us from the committee that are on, although Jeff is on all the committees, so that if there's a motion made, we have enough folks to do that. The thing I wanted to make sure, first of all, on the agenda, I want to make sure I have the correct agenda. There are, other than the minutes, there's September service change and other scheduling updates. Philip's on for that. Then the other thing is Smithfield Street bus stop, and Darcy Cleaver's on for that. And then the downtown, Uptown, Oakland BRT project update from David. And then there's one resolution. That's my agenda. So I want to make sure, because there was a correction on the agenda. So I just wanted to make sure I had the right one. So the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? And I hope that everybody's had a chance to review those. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Now, the first thing is Philip St. Pierre was up to talk about the September service change and other scheduling updates. Philip, are you there? Oh, I see you.
Good morning. Good morning, committee members and other board members. My name is Philip St. Pierre. I'm the Director of Transit Scheduling here at PRT. And today I'm going to give you a brief update on the next quarterly service changes that we will be having. The service changes will be implemented on September 4th, 2022. The key changes for a summary of the changes, there are no major service changes that are classified as major. They are all minor service changes. One of the things that I did want to brief today was a division change for a couple of our routes, and this is in advance of doing some changes for the BRT in the next year or so. The route P3 has previously operated out of the West Mifflin division and will now operate out of East Liberty, and that's due to some of the electric bus charging infrastructure to be placed out at East Liberty in the future related to the BRT. The electric buses that will operate on the BRT project in the future. The Route 64 currently is operating out of West Mifflin and East Liberty, so it's one of our only routes that operates out of two operating divisions, and that route will move over to West Mifflin solely. The Route 57 Hazelwood is currently operating at a 45-minute frequency for weekend service for Saturday and Sunday. And with the September service change, it's going to have a minor frequency reduction to 48 minutes. Route 69 Trafford, on the outbound direction for that route, it currently services Haymaker Village twice. With the September service change, there's going to be a minor routing change that it will only service Haymaker Village once in the outbound direction. So Haymaker Village will be serviced both on the inbound and outbound, but only once. And there's many other routes with time adjustments, and these are minor time adjustments, and I'm going to show a chart here, maybe a little difficult to read on the screen. But all the routes here, what we have been doing is looking at our running times and our travel times for these routes, and looking at our recovery time for these routes. So one of the things that we're looking at is improving our on-time performance by balancing some of our recovery time and hopefully improving some of our reliability for our customers with these routes. About 30 days prior, so we are a little early to brief the committee on these service changes since we don't have a meeting in upcoming August. But in August, about 30 days prior to the service change, we will be doing the public notice and distributing the timetables and getting everything updated on the website so that our customers will know what these upcoming changes are. All right. In addition to the service change, we do have a Monongahela Incline closure shuttle plan that's coming up due to the closure, due to some the rehabilitation project. This project will include upgrades to mechanical control components, the electrical systems, lighting, and interior and exterior improvements to the upper and lower stations. The closure will begin on August 1st for approximately 4 months. The shuttle buses will operate very similar to the current span of service for the Mon Incline. That is going to be from 5:30 a.m. to 12:30 a.m. on weekdays and Saturday service, and a little bit shorter of a span from 8:30 a.m. to midnight on Sundays. The frequency for the service for weekdays, Saturdays, and Sundays will be every 30 minutes. And frequency of service may be impacted by the availability of operators. In addition to the shuttle plan with the June service change, we did increase the frequency of the Route 40 to every 40 minutes to help provide some additional service for weekdays to go along with the Mon Incline closure shuttle plan. And I wanted to give a brief update on the June service changes. Those went into effect and have been operating for the last few weeks. And one of the major components of that service change was to improve our service reliability from what we have been experiencing the past few months. And on this chart, you can see in about late February or early into March, we started having some reliability issues due to manpower, not having enough manpower to fulfill our scheduled service. And so one of the things that we did is we needed to reduce our scheduled service and put more operators onto what we call the extra board. At our previous committee meetings, I previously briefed that we were probably going to be close to about a 16% extra board. In reality, we need to be closer to about an 18% extra board to really get our out of service hours to about 0. And this chart really backs that up because the last few weeks we've been 2% or lower on our out of service hours. So we have made strides, and we're going to continue to evaluate and see what we can do to improve our out of service and get that down as low as possible for our customers. And that concludes my presentation for today, and I can answer any questions that you may have before I turn it over to Darcy Cleaver for the bus stop briefing.
Are there any questions of committee members? Hey, Philip, it's John. Are there any major disruptions that you know over the next few months in reference to any work DOMI's doing? Are you familiar with any? Because I know they have this traffic calming project, which is not going to really disrupt bus service, because I think buses will be allowed to use that. Do you know of any?
Not off the top of my head, but we do have some meetings with our detour and special events department to review some major projects that are going to be ready for the November service change. So I'll get an update on that, but I don't have anything readily available for today.
Okay, so you'll send an update as soon as you have that. Because one of the things
Sure.
I was curious about is that on Center Avenue, there is a bus detour now that's been at least a couple of months, and I wondered if you knew any more about that. The 71s and the 86, 82, I think, are affected by it.
I'll get you an update for that, and we'll
Okay,
relay
all
that
right.
information.
Okay, thank you very much. If there any other board members have any questions? Are there any stakeholders that have questions of Philip? Okay, seeing no questions, next up is Darcy Cleaver, who is going to talk about the Smithfield.
Good morning. I'm Darcy Cleaver, Section Manager of Transit Amenities.
Excuse me a second. Everybody needs to mute their phones.
Is that any better? Okay.
Good morning.
Darcy, you ready?
Yep. Good morning. I'm
Morning.
Darcy Cleaver, Section Manager of Transit Amenities, and I would like to speak with you this morning in regard to a proposal for our bus stops on Smithfield Street. This is in response to an active City of Pittsburgh street project. As with all of our municipal partners, the Transit Amenities Department works very closely with our municipal partners to ensure that we are engaging with them on any street projects to look for opportunities to make improvements to our bus stops, to ensure that they are safe, accessible, comfortable, and attractive. As most of you are aware, we have approximately 7,000 stops throughout our service area, and many of them are not on Port Authority property. So this is extremely important. In response to this particular project, the city is doing a street project, and as you can see on the slide in front of us, there are currently the areas for the improvement are on Smithfield Street between 6th Avenue and the Boulevard of the Allies. And as you can see on this photograph, you can see our existing stop at 5th Avenue and the next stop at Forbes Avenue. The Transit Amenities team is proposing to consolidate stops on Smithfield Street, reducing the existing stops from 4 to 3, consolidating the stop at Forbes and 3rd, and creating a new stop at 4th. This will allow for our bus stops to adhere to our bus stop spacing guidelines and also allow for better transfer opportunities for our riders. In addition to the enhancement of lighting, better street crossings, curb cuts, and the inclusion of transit amenities, including shelters and benches, we put out a proposal to our riders and also adjacent business owners and the public to solicit their feedback on this proposal, in which they were mostly supportive at 65%. Therefore, we are planning to propose these changes to take effect in concurrence with the street plan that is expected to be complete in 2024. Any questions?
It's John. Have we gotten much stakeholder feedback on this, Darcy?
We conducted a public comment period where we solicited feedback from stakeholders, like I said, the adjacent business owners and our riders. We had signs posted at all of the effective bus stops. We also implemented a website to solicit feedback online. So folks were able to solicit their comments either by calling the customer service department, writing to us, or engaging on the website to solicit those comments. And that was for a 30-day period.
Yeah, thank you, Darcy. Any questions of committee members of Darcy? Seeing no questions, additional board members? Are there any stakeholder questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, Darcy, and look forward to updates on this project. The next item is the downtown, Uptown, Oakland BRT project update. David, are you there? Yeah, I see you.
I am. Good morning, everyone. I'm David Huffaker. I'm the Chief Development Officer here at Port Authority, or PRT now, and I am wanting to provide a brief update for the board, primarily Planning and Stakeholder Relations Committee, but there are going to be transactions you'll be hearing about later this morning in a couple different committees that will refer to the bus rapid transit project. So it's been a while since we've been in front of you to give you a little bit of update on where we are with the project, and we're at some exciting milestones. So wanted to just provide some context for some of these other transactions that are going to be coming up. So just a few things I wanted to cover here. I'm going to refresh everyone's memory on the project goals, give you an update on where we are with the FTA review process, talk about some of the scope revisions that we've worked on over the past year, talk about the current cost and funding of the project, and then schedule and next steps. And of course, there's plenty of time for discussion and questions as well. So just to refresh everyone's memory, we have a number of goals that we're trying to achieve with the BRT project. Primarily, what we're doing is trying to create some incentives for non-motorized, non-single occupancy vehicle motorized transit. So to encourage people to mode shift, whether it is into transit, which of course we hope, but we also are going to be making some significant improvements to pedestrian infrastructure and bike infrastructure throughout the core areas of downtown, Uptown, and Oakland. So we're excited about bringing some of these changes in to make all modes and including active transportation a much safer experience for the people of the city and the county. We will be making some safety improvements. The pedestrian infrastructure will be much improved. We'll have protected bike facilities, some signal improvements, and that will include some better crossings throughout the corridor. We're also always trying to look for ways to improve equity and access to the system. Some of the changes to the infrastructure will certainly provide some better accessible access to our system and to the rest of the city. And through some of the savings in the time savings of the project, we do expect to reinvest those resources elsewhere in our system to further improve access into our PRT system. And as I've been hinting at, we do have some efficiency gains, both in terms of some travel time improvements, but primarily through improved reliability. We're going to see a much more regular stretch for customers who are riding from Oakland and points east into Uptown and downtown. So we're excited about some of the reliability improvements in particular. There will be some customer improvements in terms of comfort and some of the infrastructure that will be included at some of the stations. I'll talk about that in a future slide. So we're excited about where the project is and what it's going to bring to the community. Now, last year, we were talking to you about going through the FTA review process. Federal Transit Administration is one of our key partners, and they have a project management oversight consultant who works with our project team and our project partners on delivering a project plan that is going to be deliverable. And through that process last year, we had seen some initial concerns that the FTA had and the project management oversight consultant. Some of the things that they had identified was the large size of the project. At the time, we had more than 70 stations that were going to be installed in both the downtown, Uptown, and Oakland core, as well as in the branches. And they were concerned about the sheer size of the project. As you know, Pittsburgh has a long history, and there are a lot of unknown elements that are underground. And so our coordination with the utility work that is underway continues to be a challenge. And anytime that there is work happening under the roadway, that there are unforeseen elements that are discovered. So the FTA was very concerned about our coordination with the utilities and making sure that that work was done in advance of our project work. Certainly, it was a very complex project, both in terms of the geographic space and the types of work that was being proposed. And we had originally envisioned a single construction contract that would provide all of the improvements throughout the core area. And that was another challenge that they had identified. And in general, the FTA wants to be very conservative. And so they do add some contingencies to the project and the project plan. And so those were some other items that they had identified that they wanted to see some increased contingencies added to our budgeted costs. So in our response, we have worked with our project partners, and again, our partners being the Allegheny County, the Urban Redevelopment Authority, and the City of Pittsburgh. And so we worked with our project partners to look at some of the concerns that have been identified by the FTA and see if there were ways to change the project scope to address those concerns and still deliver some of the improvements that we wanted to see throughout the area. And so we do have a revised project scope that I'll talk about in a upcoming slide that addresses a lot of those concerns. We also have taken a phased approach to the project. So as opposed to having a single construction contract throughout the entire project area, we are going to divide it up into phases. that will allow us to get started as soon as possible on the simplest elements of the project, primarily in downtown, and then we can address future construction with Uptown and Oakland. And then we also have decided to take some of the elements of this project and move them into parallel project scope. So one of the items that we've talked about is the fleet expansion and movement to 60-foot buses for the BRT service. And some of those are going to be battery electric buses, and those will still be moving forward, but we are going to be moving those into a parallel project, which allows us to actually take transactions to our board sooner than having to wait for the FTA grant authorization, which would have been required previously. And actually, you'll be hearing about bus orders later today. So we're excited to actually advance the battery electric bus program ahead of where we would have been if they had been part of the BRT project. So I think that's an example of some things that we're doing to hopefully keep this project moving as quickly as possible while still meeting the FTA concerns. So as a result, we now have worked again another round with the FTA's project management oversight consultant. We have concurrence on our project approach and our cost estimates and feel very comfortable with that. And we're working through some of their final review details as they look through our risk mitigation plan, our project management plan, and some of the other final details. Also, what's important is for us to advance the final cooperation agreements. You'll be hearing from Mike Cetra later this morning about cooperation agreements and some real estate actions that will be related to advancing the project. So getting those things in place will kind of meet the last milestones that we need to advance the project. And then assuming all those go well, we'll have the grant execution later this year, presumably in the fall. And that will be the last point, the milestone that really will allow us to get started on the project. So let's just talk a little bit about the scope revisions. I've hinted at some of the items through some of the earlier talk. So the biggest change is that actually I'm going to go to bullet 2, the branch infrastructure will be moved to a future phase. So we will still maintain the core area of downtown, Uptown, and Oakland, and that is where the heaviest of the infrastructure improvements were going to be installed anyway. Those will continue to be in the project scope. However, the future work related to the branches will come in a future phase. The downtown loop, also that element, as I described, is a little bit simpler. And so we're going to take that construction package separate from the Uptown and Oakland construction. I'll talk about timing later, but we're almost ready to get that contract out on the street and ready for bids. As I talked about, the electrification of the bus fleet moved to a parallel project. And then one item that I haven't talked about is the coordination with the city and PennDOT's Smart Signals project. That is some adaptive signal technology beyond the transit signal priority that we're installing throughout the corridor. This adaptive signal technology, which will do things like look at the adherence of the bus arriving at a signal to a particular schedule. And if a bus is behind schedule, it gets even additional priority beyond a typical bus that's running through the system. It also will be able to identify if a bus is heavily loaded with people and needs to get through a signal in advance of typical priority. That Smart Signals project is a very complex project that's being managed through DOMI, and we have worked out with the DOMI project manager for that element that we're going to do all of the infrastructure and essentially providing the conduit and the signal locations in our corridor for BRT. And then later, once our construction is done, we will actually then allow the Smart Signals team to come in. They'll essentially be able to plug and play with their technology, and it will simplify both their project and our project. So those are the primary changes on the scope. Carol, can you advance the slide? I've lost my, there we go. So this map, and it's a little hard to see, I apologize, but I do want to emphasize the core BRT area remains, and this was true last year, and it remains the heaviest infrastructure investment, and that's downtown, Uptown, and Oakland. Essentially, this area is unchanged with the exception of the phasing of the work, but we will be having significantly upgraded transit stations. I'll talk about some of the amenities that were included in those stations. We'll have dedicated transit lanes. The red bus lanes that will be operating throughout the corridor will be extensive throughout this core area. We'll also have protected bike lanes throughout much of Uptown and Oakland, and some of the improved pedestrian access, whether it's sidewalk improvements, crosswalk improvements, and some pedestrian signalizing as well. And then the signal improvements will be the last phase of the project. So typical station components, you have a rendering of one of our new PRT stations here. Typically, you'll have some bench seating, you'll have real-time signage, you'll have lighting, annunciators, the ticket vending machines, validators for off-board fare payment. There is emergency call buttons, similar to what you would see on a college campus, where you can push the button and talk to a security office 24/7. And the system itself will have much improved pedestrian infrastructure throughout the core area. Funding. So as we've been talking about, there were some cost increases, both in terms of contingencies, and then over the past year, certainly with supply chain shortages, we have seen some increases in costs overall, and we're now estimating the project to be just under $300 million. And that is going to be funded through a combination of resources, primarily federal. The biggest chunk is the half of the circle on the right. That's our Small Starts grant that we're working on getting execution with the FDA. There are also some additional American Rescue Plan funds and some CMAQ funds that will be going into the project. But we also do have a significant amount of local contribution, whether it is PRT funding out of our own capital budget, and with the execution of or adoption of the budget last month, we now have that fully funded out of the PRT budget. City of Pittsburgh is also making a contribution, and Allegheny County making a very significant contribution as well. The project is fully funded at this point, and so we're feeling very optimistic about next steps and moving this project forward. So schedule-wise, we're here in summer of '22. For the past couple months, we've been doing some extensive outreach to various stakeholder groups, meeting with elected officials and providing some background for the various stakeholders throughout the core area, as well as talking to people in the branches who are going to now be waiting to see the infrastructure improvements, although they still will be getting service improvements in the corridor. One element not to be minimized is the work that our team is doing with DOMI and the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership around the Next Transit Downtown project. This is an element of work that will look at the downtown bus network, and knowing that BRT is coming, taking a look at all of our bus routes that operate downtown, and looking at what the best way to accommodate the BRT service and allow that service to be as efficient as possible, while also finding more efficiencies and routing to both improve access into the BRT system, as well as unclogging downtown as much as possible in terms of bus and pedestrian traffic. Midsummer, and that's generally where we are right now. We will be looking at bus procurement at today's meeting, and so that's very exciting. Later this summer, we do expect to have our construction contract go out on the street and be out in the market for bidding, and that again would be the phase 1 downtown loop construction contract. Into the fall, we hope to award the construction contract. We also would expect to have a hearing and discussion on potential service changes, some of which would be noted in the Next Transit downtown work, and some of it is routing changes that we'll be making in advance of construction beginning. That will be coming later this year. And then spring of 23, actually, we'll award the construction contract, hopefully get the execution of the FTA grant. And then in spring of 23 is when we would begin construction on the downtown loop. And that's also when we would expect to have the Uptown and Oakland construction contract go out on the street and get that bidding started. Then we would expect in fall of 23 to actually award the phase 2 construction contract. And then spring of 24 is when the construction would begin in Uptown and Oakland. So that's kind of a whirlwind update on the various project elements. I'd be happy to hold here and take any questions or comments. So Mr. Tague, please.
The Uptown and Oakland, that's part of phase 2.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll start on phase 1. And so the phased approach is what we're doing, which is I think a good approach to it, because then you see whatever problems develop. One of the concerns I have is the balance between efficiency and equity. And one of the issues and you and I have talked about this before with Uptown is accessible parking, because the parking is on the left side of the street, and most accessible vans and stuff obviously operate on the left hand or the right hand side of the street. And you and I have had this conversation about this. We've had there's been conversation with Domi about it also. So I wondered if you had any update on that, because there's a concern about the availability of accessible parking during. Now we know, for example, one thing, that access can cross into the bus lanes and pick people up and let people off. That's already been established. What I was talking about is private vehicles. So that's something that I'd like you to address. If you can't address it today, at some point address it before we get too far into phase 2. So I think now, so I'd just like to stop to let you know that because you and I have had a conversation about this before. Sure. Okay. Now, any committee members with questions? Any additional board members with questions? Any stakeholder questions? Hello? Okay, seeing no questions. Thank you very much, David. Boy, that was an in-depth presentation, and I'm sure you're winded after that. So thank you for that.
I apologize. It's a lot of ground to cover, but if there are any follow-up questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to talk to anyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing to enter into a bus rapid transit project phase 2 agreement in cooperation with the Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority. Mike.
Good morning, Mr. Committee Chair and other members. This resolution would authorize PRT to enter into a BRT project cooperation agreement with the Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority for phase 2 of the downtown Oakland Uptown BRT project. As members will recall, in April of 2022, the board authorized PRT to enter into the phase 1 cooperation agreement that covers the relocation of certain water lines and related facilities maintained by PWSA in the downtown loop corridor of the project. There are also certain PWSA water lines and other facilities in the phase 2 Uptown and Oakland project areas where that will require relocation work. We have negotiated a proposed phase 2 cooperation agreement with PWSA that's similar to the phase 1 cooperation agreement, addresses critical issues such as design responsibility, cost sharing and allocation for the relocation work and betterments. And that allocation as proposed in this agreement would be for the actual relocation resulting from the BRT project would be 75% covered by PRT, the BRT project budget, 25% covered by PWSA, and PWSA would also be 100% responsible for the green infrastructure betterments that would be incorporated into the project work. Other items that are addressed in the cooperation agreement include handling of any lead lines that may be discovered during excavation and the various easements, rights of way, and permits needed to complete the phase 1 work where the various water lines and other facilities PWSA maintains are located. Subject to any member questions, I respectfully request that the committee recommend this resolution authorizing this phase 2 cooperation agreement with PWSA to the full board for approval.
Thank you, Mike. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Are there any questions of Mike about the resolution? Okay, seeing no questions, Mike, committee members, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, and that concludes the work of the Planning and Stakeholders Relations Committee. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Meeting is adjourned, and our next meeting will be in September since we're off in the month of August. So thank you very much for joining us this morning, and I hope everybody has a good day. See you. Bye. I think the next committee meeting is the Finance Committee meeting, right?
Is Ann on? This is Jen.
I do not believe so.
Do you,
All right.
I'm also on the committee. Do you want someone else to take it over?
Please,
Mr. Letwin?
please. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it over.
Thanks, Jen.
But thanks, Jen. Let's call the meeting, the Finance Committee together. Committee members, identify yourselves.
Austin Davis.
Jerry DeLon.
And Jen Liptak.
Thank you. Any other board members on the call?
John Tennig.
Stephanie Terman.
Michelle Spianic.
Jeff. Well, who's this group, this committee that they introduced? Finance Committee. Oh.
Okay, anyone who's not speaking, please mute their phones. And I have a motion for approval of the minutes of the prior meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, with that, we'll turn it over to Pete for the monthly fiscal year 2022 June results.
Good morning, board. So this will be an abbreviated Finance Committee meeting. We are going to review the June operating results and also look at the unaudited fiscal year financial results. So at a minimum, there will still be a salary and wage accrual of probably $4 to $5 million in addition to some invoices that will come in July for June products and services that are not represented in these financial results. Our total operating income for the month was $2.4 million below budget, and principally due to lower passenger revenues and access shared ride revenues. However, for June, the passenger revenues were $350,000 higher than the month of May due to an increase in weekly pass sales. Our unaudited total operating income for the fiscal year is approximately $45 million below the budget, with every income category below budget. And we will be invoicing against federal stimulus dollars to make up for that shortfall. On a good news front, the unaudited expenses for the month were $10.5 million below budget. and for the year, almost $52 million below budget. And once again, this result does not include the accrual for the salary and wages and any other year-end accruals. Lower expense levels in both materials and supplies and purchase services made up about $21.2 million of this variance. From a subsidy perspective, for the month, we were $9.5 million above budget, and that was due to an ARPA invoice that we submitted during the month of June. For the fiscal year, our subsidies are $13.3 million below budget. We will be submitting an additional ARPA invoice once we have booked the accruals and the final deficit is determined for the fiscal year. Our current operating deficit is at $6.3 million without those year-end accruals. So once that's solidified, we will submit another federal stimulus subsidy invoice. From a year-over-year perspective, our total operating income was almost $16 million higher than last fiscal year. The passenger revenues are 45% higher than last fiscal year. Shared ride was 18.2% higher than last fiscal year. And advertising revenue was also up almost 45% from fiscal 22 levels. Our total unaudited expenses year over year are currently $9.7 million higher than last fiscal year, primarily due to higher wages and salaries, materials and supplies, provisions for injuries and damages, and other expenses. Our subsidy for the fiscal year is $1.8 million lower than last fiscal year. And that's because we are using currently less federal stimulus dollars and preventive maintenance dollars than we did in fiscal 2021. Operating reserves continue to be healthy. We began the month with $162.5 million in operating reserves. We had $43.2 million in cash inflows from passenger revenues and other grants and subsidies. Our operating reserve outflows for the month of June were $43.3 million for salary and wages, purchase services, and other materials and supplies. So we ended the fiscal year with approximately $162.4 million in operating reserves. Can I answer any questions regarding the finances for June or the fiscal year? All right. Hearing none, thank you very much.
We'll conclude the meeting of the Finance Committee and move on to Performance and Oversight Committee. I know Michelle Smanik's on, so Michelle, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Our first item of business this morning is going to be our roll call. So please state if you are committee members. If you're on the line with us, please state your name.
Austin Davis.
Good morning, Austin. Do we have Representative Magorski here this morning? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move forward here. So that completes our roll call. Our next item of business will be the approval of our meeting minutes. So our meeting minutes of June 16th. Do we have any additions, corrections to those meeting minutes? Hearing none, could I have a motion to approve and accept the meeting minutes?
So moved.
And I'll second those. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Meeting minutes are approved. Our next item of business then, we're moving in towards our proposed resolutions this morning. The first item is awarding of bids with Jermaine Ward. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. How are you? I have 5 items for your review and presentation for the full board for approval. All the bids were publicly advertised and our e-business system documents were distributed. Number 1, use antifreeze removal service. 2 firms accepted the invitation and 2 bids were received for over a 2-year period. It is our recommendation that the contract be awarded to the low responsive bid, Heritage Crystal Clean LLC, and the estimated amount of $101,976.75 over the 2-year period. There has been no recent purchase of these services. However, staff has determined the pricing to be fair and reasonable and consistent with the funded budgeted. Number 2, refrigerants. 3 firms accepted the invitation and 3 bids were received for R407C refrigerants for the authority's bus fleet. It is our recommendation that a contract be awarded to the low responsive bid, Penn Power Group LLC, in the amount of $105,750. These prices represent a 297% increase from the previous contract prices for these items 1 year ago. Staff has determined the pricing to be fair and reasonable and consistent with the funds budgeted. The reason for the steep prices, I'm sorry, Cheryl, can you go back? The reason for the steep prices, the prices of the refrigerant, it's a phase out initiative, and it's causing low supply and high demand. So the American Innovative Manufacturer, as of January 1st, 2022, implemented a phase down of the HFC, which includes the R407C. Okay. Number 3, wiper arm assemblies. 4 firms accepted the invitation and 4 bids were received for wiper arm assemblies for the authority's bus fleet over a 2-year period. It is our recommendation that the contract be awarded to the low responsive bid, Mohawk Manufacturing and Supply Company, in an estimated amount of $125,200. These prices represent a 1% increase from the previous contract prices for these 2 firms, or for these items 2 years ago. Staff has determined that the pricing be fair and reasonable and consistent with the funds budgeted. Number 4, elevator and escalator maintenance. 4 firms accepted the invitation and 4 bids were received for the purchase of elevator and escalator maintenance service over a 3-year period. It is our recommendation that the contract be awarded to the low responsive bid, Schindler Elevator Corporation, in the estimated amount of $2,275,286. The price represents a 3% increase from the previous contract prices for these services 3 years ago. Staff has determined that the pricing be fair and reasonable and consistent with the funds budgeted. And number 5, janitorial supply general. This bid was publicly advertised and e-business documents were distributed. 6 firms accepted the invitation and 5 bids were received for the purchase of janitorial supplies general over a 3-year period. The low bidder, L&M Sales and Supplies, proposed an item for line 13 that did not meet the specification. As such, the award was made to the next low bidder, Liberty Distributors. None of the items proposed for lines 15, 23, and 29 met the specifications. Therefore, the authority will reject all bids for these items and continue to purchase them off contract. None of the bidders proposed on item for line 32, and as such, the authority will continue to purchase these items off contract. It is our recommendation that the contract be awarded to the low responsible bidders, which submitted responsive bids as follows. Devers Corporations, who's doing business as DeSantis Solutions, 5 items in an estimated amount of $38,970. Liberty Distributors Incorporated, 7 items in the estimated amount of $51,562.80. Number 3, L&M Sales and Supplies, 15 items in the estimated amount of $139,768.30. These prices represent a 63% increase from the previous contract prices for these products 3 years ago. Staff has determined that the pricing be fair and reasonable and consistent with the funds budgeted. Are there any questions?
Thank you. I have no questions. Any of our committee members have questions for Ms. Ward this morning?
Yeah, just a question on this janitorial supplies. So I take it it's cheaper to contract with a firm as opposed to hire people. Is that kind of true?
Yes. Yes, these are line item. We actually bidded out each line item and accepted the lowest bid per line item. So yes, this was the most efficient process.
Okay.
It's
thank
just
you.
for supplies. It's not for services. This is just for supplies.
Oh, sorry. Kind of
That's okay.
misunderstood. I thought we were talking about services. We're talking about supplies.
No.
I get you. Sorry.
That's okay. Any additional
Thank you.
questions?
All right, hearing no other questions, then could I have a motion to move this forward to the board for a full meeting next Friday?
So moved.
Second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any unopposed? Okay, great.
Thank you.
Motion carries then moving forward. Thank you. Thank you, Jermaine. Have a good afternoon. Moving on to item B of our proposed resolutions, authorization to enter into agreements to purchase clean diesel and electric powered 40-foot low floor buses. Dawn Ravetti, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Committee Chairwoman and committee members. This resolution would authorize Pittsburgh Regional Transit to enter in agreements to acquire 35, 40, and 60-foot clean diesel and battery electric buses and related tooling, training, special equipment from New Flyer of America and Gillig LLC over the course of a 5-year period. The new vehicles will replace existing buses which have reached the end of their useful life. Consistent with PRT's policies and procedures, an evaluation committee was convened to evaluate proposals, and the recommended top-rated proposer or proposers from which to purchase the buses. RFP number 6,000 was publicly advertised and 4 proposals were received. The evaluation committee met to discuss and evaluate the proposals and subsequently conducted interviews with the 2 highest rated proposers. As a result of the review and the proposals and the interviews, the evaluation committee identified Gillig as the highest rated proposer from which to purchase 35 and 40-foot low floor buses, and New Flyer as the proposer from which to purchase 60-foot low floor articulated buses. If recommended by the Performance Oversight Committee and approved by the board, this resolution will authorize PRT to enter an agreement with New Flyer of America for 107 60-foot buses consisting of 38 clean diesel, 54 clean diesel with BRT styling, and 15 battery electric powered buses with BRT styling, totaling $95,071,239.63, with options to purchase up to 50 additional 60-foot articulated buses, along with associated major component spares, training, tooling, and special diagnostic equipment, totaling $5,054,714.98, for a grand total not to exceed of $100,125,954.61. Subject to final agreement execution, it's currently anticipated that the New Flyer buses will be delivered beginning of the fall of 2023. This resolution would also authorize PRT to enter an agreement with Gillig LLC
for up to 30 clean diesel 40-foot low-floor transit buses totaling $16,613,250, with options to purchase up to 270 additional 35 and/or 40-foot buses, along with the associated major component spares, training, special tooling, and diagnostic equipment totaling $1,164,701 for a grand total not to exceed of $17,777,951. Subject to final agreement execution, it's anticipated that the Gillig buses would be delivered in the fall of 2024. Madam Committee Chairwoman, subject to any questions committee members may have, I respectfully request that the Performance Oversight Committee recommend this resolution authorizing Pittsburgh Regional Transit to enter into agreements with both New Flyer of America and Gillig LLC with an overall combined total not to exceed amount of $117,903,905.61 to full board for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rivetti. Do I have any questions from our committee members for Mr. Rivetti on this proposal?
Hey, Dawn, do we have a termination for convenience or anything in this contract that in case we decide to move more into gas powered vehicles, hydrogen, CNG, whatever, that we'll be able to do that?
We do. This contract would have we could exercise options for diesel or electric. We could also, if we look into hydrogen or other types of vehicles, Chairman Letwin, we can do as we did in the past, where when we purchased the first 2 hybrid buses, we could use other agreements since they're not specified in this contract.
Thank you.
So there's options.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Michelle, just a quick question. The painting of the buses, they do that, right? That would be done by the providers.
Yes,
Or
Board Member Tech. These would come in wrapped and already branded as PRT vehicles with the new colors, new logos, everything delivered just like that.
Yeah, I thought that was the case, but I just wanted to make sure.
Any other questions from any other board members? Thank you, Mr. Rivetti.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to move this forward to the full board for a vote next week?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Motion carries on the purchase of the buses. Thank you. Item C on our agenda this morning, authorization to award construction contract for the East Busway Bridge Rehabilitation Project with Mr. Greg O'Hare. Good morning. How are you?
Doing great. Good morning. So this resolution seeks authorization to award construction contract for EB 2203 for the East Busway Bridge Rehabilitation Project. If the members remember or recall, in October 2021, the board approved a resolution to enter into an agreement with Norfolk Southern Railroad and CSX Railroad for construction agreement and temporary construction easements to set the stage for this project. Here, we're now moving to award of construction contract to complete the actual work. The scope of work is the rehabilitation and restoration of 4 PRT bridges. The scope consists of concrete bridge deck replacement at the B&O Bridge, steel superstructure painting, steel superstructure repairs, concrete substructure and deck repairs, bridge bearing replacement, under bridge lighting replacement, partial mural restoration at the North Homewood Avenue Bridge, and epoxy bridge deck surface treatment. Construction activities will be completed using single lane alternating traffic control with flaggers and temporary signals. The estimated contract duration is approximately 14 months. The lowest responsive bidder is Mercedes Construction Company with a bid of $6,057,777. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the top picture is an aerial view of the East Busway and the project area, depicting the 4 bridges and the locations of the 4 bridges. The westernmost bridge is the B&O Bridge, which sits towards the end of the Neville Ramp, which goes into the North Oakland area of the city of Pittsburgh. Moving towards the east, you have the East Liberty Ramp Bridge, which is adjacent to the Penn Avenue Bridge in the East Liberty area of the city. And then the easternmost bridge is the North Homewood Avenue Bridge in the Homewood area. There's 3 pictures on the bottom just depicting some of the deterioration of the bridges and the necessity to do this bridge restoration project. The picture on the left is the bridge deck of the B&O Bridge, which carries the East Busway over CSX Railroad and is immediately adjacent to Norfolk Southern Railroad. As you can see in the picture there, the bridge deck is significantly deteriorated with the potholes that have been patched up. The center picture is the North Homewood Avenue Bridge, depicting the steel superstructure, which is in need of painting. And the rightmost picture is the Penn Avenue Bridge, which depicts the steel superstructure, again, which is in need of steel repairs and painting. With that, I respectfully request the committee to move the resolution to the full board for consideration, pending any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from our committee members for Mr. O'Hare? Questions from other board members?
Yes, John, disruption of service. Can you talk a little bit about that? That's kind of what will happen there?
Sure. So the construction is going to be done in single alternating traffic, so the disruption to service will be very minimal. With the single alternating traffic, there will be temporary signals that'll be placed on the busway, where buses will have to wait maybe a matter of 10, 20 seconds before they're able to proceed through the construction area.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
And Mr. O'Hare, that's to last 14 months, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, could I have a motion to move this forward to the full board?
So moved.
Second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Hare. Moving forward to item D, authorization to enter into temporary construction easement agreements with the City of Pittsburgh for the Monongahela Incline Phase 2 Rehabilitation. Mr. Mike Setter, good morning. How are you, Mr.
Good morning.
Setter?
Good morning, Madam Committee Chairwoman and other members. I'm doing good. I have 2 resolutions for the committee's consideration this morning. The first resolution would authorize PRT to enter into a temporary construction easement agreement with the City of Pittsburgh for temporary access to and utilization of certain city real property to assist PRT and its contractors in completing the Monongahela Incline Phase 2 Rehabilitation Project. As members may recall, the board authorized PRT to award general HVAC and electrical construction contracts for the Incline Phase 2 Rehab project this past fall. In finalizing the schedule and the work plan for the project, our staff and the contractors identified the need to enter onto certain city property, both at the above McCardle roadway and below McCardle roadway, to assist in completing some of the structural repairs and also some slope stabilization work above McCardle roadway underneath the incline. The city has agreed at no cost to PRT, which we clearly greatly appreciate, to enter into the necessary temporary construction easement agreement with Port Authority for the 2 easement areas. And Cheryl, could you go to the next slide, please? So you can kind of see here, the blue area, those are the areas that we already own and control. And then there are 2 easement areas. There's a blue area you'll see marked on there, and a red area, both above and below the McCardle roadway. I'm sorry, a green area is the below McCardle roadway. And those are the 2 areas that would be subject to this easement agreement. So subject to any member questions, I'd respectfully request that the committee recommend this resolution to the full board for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Setter. Any questions from our committee members? Any questions from board members? Hearing none, could I have a motion to move this forward to the full board?
So moved.
Second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Setter is continuing to acquire remaining right of way. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. The second resolution that I have for the committee's consideration this morning would authorize PRT to acquire the remaining right-of-way necessary to complete construction of both phases of the BRT project. To date, PRT staff with excellent support from our design team and our real estate consultants and legal counsel have acquired various right-of-way interests from property owners voluntarily in lieu of condemnation to assist in construction and operation of the BRT project. So to date, we have 116 license agreements executed for sidewalk work. And we have 54 temporary construction easements executed for roadway, station, utility work. So a tremendous amount of agreements voluntarily completed over the last 18 months or so here through the hard work of our team and very cooperative project property owners and with help from our other project stakeholders such as the city, the county, and the URA. Attached to the resolution in your package this morning is Exhibit A, though, are 15 parcels which we currently do not have agreements for. We obviously are going to be on a schedule, particularly with federal money involved. And you'll see if you look at the exhibit, there are 2 BRT Phase 1 parcels remaining and 13 BRT Phase 2 parcels. And I note none of these are permanent property interests. They're all either temporary construction easements or subsurface access for some utility work. So these would be temporarily acquired by PRT for these improvements, and then ultimately return to the property owners in an approved state when those portions of the work are completed. However, while we continue to work to try to finalize voluntary agreements with these 15 property owners, we do need to reserve the ability and have the ability to exercise eminent domain, PRT's right to power of eminent domain, if we need it to keep the project moving. Under PRT's board adopted limits of authority, the board reserves unto itself the ability to authorize PRT to utilize eminent domain. So this resolution, again, only to the extent necessary, would authorize PRT to exercise its right of eminent domain and condemn the remaining right-of-way necessary to complete construction of the BRT project. And it would further authorize an agreement for a permanent acquisition, and this is a voluntary agreement in lieu of condemnation with Presbyterian University Health System, now known as UPMC, for approximately 390 square feet of real property located at the intersection of 5th Avenue and Chesterfield Road in Oakland for the purchase price, and this was an appraised purchase price of $65,400 for a new BRT station location. Subject to any member questions, I respectfully request that the Performance Oversight Committee recommend this resolution authorizing PRT to utilize eminent domain as necessary and otherwise enter into a voluntary agreement with UPMC for the station area to the full board for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Sutter. Any questions from our board members? Or committee members, sorry.
I make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Travis. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Sutter.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next item today is going to be a presentation of our strategic plan overview with Catherine Kellerman and Dawn Hamilton. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Madam.
Good morning,
CEO.
Madam Chair. Good morning to your granddaughter as well. Good morning to the members of the committee, everybody joining us. It's my pleasure today to present our 2023-2028 strategic plan. The committee will recall in 2018, we introduced a tactical plan to lay out groundwork of doing interdisciplinary cross-departmental projects that we could deliver on and be sort of a ramp up for a strategic plan. And so here we are. If we can have the next slide, Cheryl. So we are looking at our strategically, where do the next 5 years take us? During COVID, we were able to complete our 25 years long range plan, next transit plan. So laying out where we envision transportation being 25 years from now. But it's a big jump to go from 1 year to 25 years. So a strategic plan will let us steer through the next 5 years, organizing everything that we want to do and what we need to be doing to carry forward the projects that we've committed for our region, but also taking into account being a good neighbor, being a large employer, and then being a partner in a more equitable Pittsburgh and Allegheny County going forward. So next slide, please, Cheryl. So just a snapshot for the state of the agency. Many folks will already know this. We are currently the 20th busiest transit agency in the country. Back in 2018, we were 25th busiest, still the 15th busiest bus agency. We definitely punch above our weight when you look at metros in the US. And this is due to a long legacy of very effective transit, very effective land use. We date back to 1859. We are a big deal. And even during COVID, we are providing over 27 million trips a year. That is off of our total pre-COVID of 65 million trips a year, but we absolutely make Allegheny County happen. Not just connecting folks where we're going, but we are a major economic generator. We wanted to spend some time in this plan talking about those aspects as well. Next slide, Cheryl. So why now? It is, and we get that question, why brand now? Why do a strategic plan now? Why do a long range plan now? Well, if you don't know where you're going, how do you know that you're on the right path? And not just what we're going to build, but how we're going to build it, how we're going to operate it. And then increasingly, how are we engaging folks, not just internally, but externally? COVID showed us that folks want clean, courteous, reliable, respectful transportation. We knew that ahead of time, and the pandemic reinforced that for us. We have all but one of our routes going to grocery stores and medical facilities, and folks consume transportation differently now than they did beforehand. Not just work, but people order their groceries. People talk to their doctors online. It is a different way of getting around and using our system. So how are we ready to go forward with those challenges? Who knows what the next wave is going to bring? As soon as I'm done presenting, I'm putting on my mask. But we have enough information to know how we can go forward, and the work we do is too critical to wait. So next slide, Cheryl. So I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Strategy Officer, Donnie Hamilton Jr., to walk through the next portion of our presentation.
Thank you, Catherine. Good morning, Madam Chair, Woman, and members of the board. I first want to say that I really appreciate seeing the young person with the Madam Chairwoman, because we're going to need that talent in probably the next 20, 25 years. So I'm glad to see they're involved in the business of transit so early on. With respect to how the process went, this was a 6-month process, comprehensive process. We were a bit aggressive in how we tackled the strategic plan. I want to thank the members of the senior team. I want to thank Catherine for her leadership and guiding us through the strategic plan. And this document actually guides the future direction of where we go as PRT. We went through a series of 3 workshops, particularly with the senior team. What our focus was more of leadership. What's the leadership consensus and how we develop our strategies, our goals, our objectives, et cetera. We wanted this to occur at a departmental level where we engaged our directors, our managers, the people from bottom up, so that we have a process where everybody feels included. We intentionally wanted to communicate goals and strategies. So this plan development process was very iterative. I'm looking at our strategic planning director in the back. We probably went through 70 plus versions of this plan to get to where we are today. And I also like to thank the board, because you provided invaluable feedback to us to help make this plan what it is today. Next slide, please. Sure. So the key elements of the plan included 3 things. Where's our agency now? So basically, this is our environmental assessment. If you take a look at the plan, you will see toward the back that we have a 4 corners analysis. That's a result of a lot of leadership capital and thinking about operationally, where are we? Financially, where are we? And how do we match up compared to our peers? So that's very important for us to be competitive in the future. Where do we want to take this? We had to, you will see later, Catherine will talk about it with respect to reimagine our vision, our mission. We created and formalized our values and put them in place, as well as looked at goals and objectives. So those objectives will actually help us to get there. Next slide, please, Cheryl. When we went through the process, there were a lot of themes. You heard a lot of people saying keywords. You heard a lot of people throwing out the same ideas. So what we did is come up with strategic themes. And those themes included national leadership, innovation, equity, customer service, financial stewardship, and culture. If I could stay there for 1 second, Cheryl, I want to point to national leadership. I have to commend our leader with respect to national leadership. She came in all energetic, as everyone knows Catherine to be, and said, we want to be the leader. We want to be the best in class. And as we looked throughout the documents and took all the great ideas that we were getting from the chiefs and we were hearing from the directors, everybody's ideas was going to, we want to be the best. So when we put that national leadership in there, we mean that because we want to be the best in class. We want to be one of the safest systems. We want to be most efficient. We want to make sure everybody has equity and inclusion in what we do here at the Port Authority. So next slide, please, Cheryl. I'm going to turn it over to Catherine. She's going to go over the vision and mission part of the presentation.
Thank you, Donnie. So it's time for a refresh on our vision and our mission, and I apologize in advance. I always turn this into mission and vision, so please excuse me if I get this wrong. Previously, we had talked about connecting people to life, and we still do that, but why do we do this? It is a nice thing to do, but connecting people to all the aspects of their life enables us to have a very thriving culture for the region, but also a really strong economy where everyone can participate. If you can't get to jobs, training, your family, et cetera, you are not participating in the economy, and we will have a stronger recovery with everybody able to participate from the grandbaby on to the great-great-grandma who's out there and she's coming back and doing her shopping during the day. Our previous vision had talked about being the premier agency for the country, and to Donnie's previous point, yes, we believe we can be national leaders, but what we heard back from our passengers and our stakeholders was be the best for Pittsburgh, be the best for Allegheny County. So making sure that we're focusing on what needs to be done here at home. We encapsulating all the values which had come up through our conversations back and forth. So the vision being the premier mode of choice. We've mentioned before on PRT rebranding, you take us because you want to and not because you have to. People have heard me say this ad nauseum, no disrespect to anyone in the room. We're not just here for the guy in the tie and striving for that customer. We're striving for the Head Start mom who's consuming our services 40 times a week, taking her kids to school, going to a VOTEC, going to her grocery store, going to her place of worship. This is a vision to be the mode of choice for everybody and not trying harder to get new customers, trying harder for the customers and the staff that we have today. And again, our mission focusing on advancing our region by investing in our communities and connecting folks in the best way that we can. We do three things here. We transport people, we employ people, and we do contracts with people. Those are the big focuses that we have. They have been for the past few years, and I'm very happy that this plan focuses that going forward. Next slide, Cheryl. So one thing we have not had previously were corporate values. When we are looking at bringing new people onto the team, I know I individually look for shared values because if we have shared values, 80% of our conversations don't need to happen because we know we're on the same page, we are headed in the same direction, and we're going to do this in the same way. So it was time for us to move into a place where we captured these values. And a lot of these are self-explanatory. Obviously, safety, we have one of the best national safety records for rail safety. We have a very high safety record for bus. I would be remiss if I didn't observe that of the calamities we've had from derailments to sinkholes to bridges collapsing, these have been horrible things, and knock on wood, we have not had any significant injuries and no loss of life, which is an outstanding safety record. And we have to lay that at the feet of our safety team and our Port Authority police force. They've done an excellent job with this. So thank you, Mike, to you and all the members of your team for this, but also from a maintenance perspective, from operations, everyone's at the table on this. Clearly, we have to be flexible, not just because trains might land on us, but our pandemic, I mean, what we've learned in the past few years is nothing is going to be the same. And the faster we can move on our teams to be flexible, the faster we can rise to these challenges. Customer service now more than ever is our calling card, and not just for the folks who are riding us today, but the folks who have the opportunity to move anywhere in the country and they're choosing to come to this amazing region to move forward with their lives, and they're looking for a place where they don't have to drive. Because honestly, driving down a straightaway might be fun, but every other aspect of car ownership is stinky, to put it plainly. And how can we make life happen without that? How do we make sure that we're not turning our city into a parking lot and that we have these great activities like Picklesburg or front porch conversations? That's the focus on our customers on every level by having the best service that we can. Clearly, collaboration comes to the top. What we've learned as we've grown in the past few years is nothing happens in a vacuum, except for Inez's group, who is amazing in every way. But even Inez's group is supporting all our other groups. So HR might say, let's work forward to ban the box, but that has equity implications. That has operational implications. It brings so many more people in who are employable. We have to work across our different lines. And so we wanted to capture that as a value. We've talked a lot about equity, and so it's time to walk that walk, not just how we provide service now, but we have a $500 million budget. We are a major investor in our region. And how are we using that money to connect to new businesses and grow them up that have historically not had a seat at the table? Are we addressing the impacts of redlining when we look at where service goes? Our agency has a really low turnover rate, sub 3%, of which I'm very proud, but it also means that that natural progression of folks moving to new jobs and retiring that opens up leadership positions where we can grow our team is slower. So what are we doing from a career ladder perspective and employee perspective so we are getting growth across all of our folks? And then let's wrap up with integrity. We can't tell you to trust us. In fact, I know if I hear someone say, trust me, it means I know that they know I shouldn't trust them. But if we're going forward and building that trust, we live up to what we say we're going to do. We answer for mistakes. We are accountable and transparent, and we continue to bring everyone with us. We will be taking this core value of integrity through everything which we do. So I'm going to turn it over here to Donnie to walk through the rest of the strategic goals.
Thanks, Catherine. After hearing Catherine speak, I'm going to go home and actually put my vehicle up for sale because I've completely just. How can you not be bought in on transit after that? So we're going to jump into our strategic goals. We had 4 goals. This was done in collaboration again with the leadership team. We probably started with probably 8, and we gleaned them down to the 4 most important things that are important to PRT. So we're going to start with accountability here. When we talk about accountability, we say we're going to do what we say we're going to do. That's the point of this goal in general. And how do we do that? We do that through processes and procedures, making sure we're operationally transparent, that we've been equitable, as you heard Catherine speak about today. And the way we accomplish that is through objectives. With every strategic goal, you'll see the complementary objectives. And here we're going to look at organizational efficiency. Are we doing business in a way that's efficient, that avoids fraud, waste, abuse, et cetera? Financially, are we allocating money the right type of way? Economic prosperity. I love what Catherine said. Everything that we do and how we do things here ties into how we advance the region here in Pittsburgh in terms of economic prosperity. So that's a very important point. And community engagement. Next slide, please, Cheryl. We're going to focus on customer experience. Everybody that gets on a train, you get on a bus, you get on even the Incline, we want you to have the very best customer experience you can when you're interfacing with PRT. So we want to provide that exemplary service. We want to be an equitable transit system, which means that everybody has skin in the game. Everybody should feel comfortable when they interface or interact with us. You matter to us, and we want the playing field to be equal for everybody in terms of businesses, individuals, et cetera. And maintaining safety. Big shout out to the mics, like Catherine said, to Mike, et cetera. I've told everybody on the senior leadership team that if we do have the apocalypse, I absolutely want to be on the Port Authority bus or vehicle. Well, next slide, please. PRT. I apologize. I'm still learning. 1 year in. My apologies. Next slide. Organizational resilience. We wanted to focus on that the world's changing, and we have to adapt. We have to respond extremely quickly to the various conditions. So we would do that through implementing policies, processes, and initiatives. And as you see, the accompanying objectives here are financial stability. We're going to focus on risk and how we look at risk. We want to promote an innovative culture as well as a talented workforce. So we need an agile workforce. So we'll be looking at Inez for that. Next slide, please. And finally, sustainability as our final goal. We wanted to take more of an environmental turn towards sustainability. We've heard Don Rivetti talk about the innovations with alternative fuels earlier. We want to make sure that we're being a good partner and a good steward environmentally for our region. So as we look at our objectives, we want to focus on reducing those carbon emissions and being recognized as a national leader with that. Next slide, please, Cheryl. With respect to how we get this done, one of the final things that I heard in the workshop with the board members in April is, I believe as board member Terman said, it's good to have a strategic plan. It is good that we have something in place now, but how do we get this done? This is how we will do it. We will do it through building internal capacity. We're going to be out here. We're going to be training. We're going to educate people about how this looks. This is a serious, this is change management. And people need to be prepared. We're going to focus on knowledge management, and we're going to do it through enterprise performance management. And you'll see some of the tools involved with that. With that, next slide, please. We're going to turn it over for any questions that you may have. And I'm going to turn it back over to Kathy.
And thank you, committee members, board members, and just a few things to wrap up. So this is a lot. It isn't necessarily a changing of direction as much as a refining of the direction. We have a lot of informal conversations about, how are we going to best serve? How are these very cool things that you will see in the tech committee from Jeffrey Devlin's shop? How do these projects make it easier for folks to access and use service? It's fun to innovate, but how does it improve the customer experience? Clearly, the herding of cats, which goes on in the planning and engineering group. Thank you, Greg, and thank you, David, and Philip, and geez, everybody over there. The craziness that goes on with that. How do we sort of row in the same direction, make sure these projects are all building on each other, for lack of a better expression? So this is what we've talked about, but it's codifying this process here. So moving forward, as Donnie just mentioned, this will translate into our annual work plans. I know through our HR team, we've already incorporated this into to this fiscal year's appraisals. So our staff are actively working on this. This will also turn into dashboards that we'll be able to share with the public to show how we are moving toward these objectives, what we've accomplished. And I believe we already have the strategic plan posted on the website, which we can now reach at rideprt.org. Is that correct? Not yet. We're working on that. I can't wait not to have to type Port Authority on my phone anymore. And I think, so I'll be checking that, refreshing it constantly. And I do want to say so first and foremost, as we've mentioned before, I have built other people's cities, and I'm delighted to be building my hometown now with this really fantastic team. We were so excited to do really cool things in 2020, and we didn't know that surviving would be the excitement. And the past few years have not been easy for anybody, but for the folks who've had to be on the front line, the folks in this room who've had to support folks on front line, it's difficult to articulate how much more difficult that has been than even for those of us who are supporting broadly through the agency. And yet our team has never quit. Our team didn't throw in the towel, though there have been a lot of times it was pretty tempting to discuss it. We're fully committed to making sure we deliver here, and I am absolutely convinced with the folks we have at this table, this agency, that we can do some really amazing stuff for the county and the region. So with that, we will open it up to questions.
Thank you, Catherine. My first comment would be thank you for this plan. I'm really excited to have this plan implemented and to be working with all of you. So thank you. Thank you.
And I do have to say thank you especially to Donnie Hamilton and Mara DeFilippis, that coming into a new organization is always daunting, and then having to figure out how to structure it, what could possibly go wrong. And it's been I'm very impressed with the work that we've had back. Thank you.
Michelle?
Yes, go ahead, John.
You kind of addressed this before, but I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the name change and how this ties into the strategic plan and the importance of why we needed to do this rebranding.
Well, thank you, John. When you are looking to access trade, so here, it's a truism in any city. When you've been in a city for a long time, you know how things are labeled and which roads are one ways and what the shortcuts are to go. And then that's a little bit of insider baseball. So a name like Port Authority is a little bit of insider baseball. How are the Pirates doing now? Should I avoid talking about baseball? Like, are we doing okay? I take it back. It's still inside baseball, but minor league perhaps. So when we are talking about positioning us as a, not just a national leader, but regionally, how do people who are new to the area know where to go? How do we build a system where if I'm in Cranberry and I want to go to Ross, I should be able to get on a vehicle and pay a fare and not have to come downtown, have to transfer. If I am new to town and I show up at the airport or the Amtrak station, I shouldn't have to wonder why the boat company is running the bus that's going to get me from A to B. And when you are not here, Port Authority sounds like a bus. We also have a bunch of older branding. We have the gold standard signage at park and rides. We have bus stops that just say bus stop. So if we're going to go through the process of overhauling the signage and overhauling our maps and the website address and the whole nine, let's do it in a deliberate way that captures what we really want to convey to our customers and what our customers have told us they wanted. Our customers, don't want flying drones. They don't want Uber and Lyft and glitter and fancy self-driving. They want clean, courteous, reliable, and respectful. So what is more basic than Pittsburgh Regional Transit? It tells you where we are. And I'd offer that we have the Allegheny County Aviation Authority, but we don't fly into ACA. We fly into the Pittsburgh International Airport. It conveys clearly what we do. We are a transit authority, and it clearly lets you know that we see the region the same way folks who live here do. When I lived in Upper Sinclair and I took my kids to the bounce house in Washington County, it didn't occur to me to worry about crossing that county line. It's where we wanted to go. And everyone should have the opportunity to live where they want, but then be able to get to jobs or to medical facilities or IKEA. God bless you taking flat pack on the bus, but we've got a bus stop right there. You should be able to live your life in a fully integrated way. If that's what we're providing to folks, why wouldn't we want to make those regional connections? So moving forward, we wanted to use, now with the rebrand, this is our first big pitch. This is our first big initiative. It's, hey, we've rebranded, but what does that actually mean? And it means we're focusing on you, what you need from us as an employer, what you need from us as a customer. And here's how you're going to know that we are listening to you and we are actually making good on these promises.
Thank you, Catherine. The reason I emphasize that because it's important that people understand why we do what we do. And,
Thank you.
And there's always some confusion on when the Port Authority does something. And I just wanted you another opportunity to talk about why we did the rebranding.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tegg. Any other questions? Catherine, truly enlightening, exciting, energized. This is wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, having and hearing no other questions, this concludes our business for today. And so Performance Oversight Committee is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Next up, I believe we have technology.
Jen, are you still on?
Yes, I am. Good morning, everyone. We're going to start the Technology Committee meeting. We're going to start with a roll call, please, of members. I believe I'm on the line, of course, and I don't know that Representative Muskorski's on. I'll just double check. Are you on, Lori? She's got a conflict this morning, but can other members please identify themselves for the record who are still remain on the line?
Jeff Lightwind.
John Tagg.
Michelle Smianik.
Okay, thank you, everyone. First order of business will be approval of minutes of the June meeting. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so the first, we have a few bids. So if we want to start with the first bid, I believe we have 3 different staff members presenting. You want to go with the first one?
All right, good morning, everyone. I have 2 items for the review and presentation to the full board for approval. Number 1, Microsoft Enterprise Agreement Software Assurance. At its October 23rd, 2020 meeting, the board authorized the agreement of a contract to Soft Choice Corporation to provide PRT with a Microsoft Enterprise Agreement and related licensing for use of various Microsoft applications, software assurance, and related technical support services for PRT employees, agents, offices, and support facilities at PRT's various administrative office and operating locations over a 3-year period. The current authorized not to exceed amount for the contract for the services is $970,056.36. Since the contract was entered into, PRT has identified additional Microsoft enterprise licensing needs and new and revised Microsoft products requiring an increase in a not to exceed amount for the services in an additional $505,000. It is our recommendation that the contract be amended with Soft Choice Corporation to increase the total not to exceed contract amount from $970,056.36 to $1,475,056.36. Staff has determined that the pricing is fair and reasonable and consistent with the current funds budgeted. Number 2, Dell Rug, non-rug laptops. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of General Services Cooperative Purchasing Program, which is called CoStars, has awarded an IT hardware contract to several firms and PRT wishes to make a purchase under the terms and conditions of the contract number 003-051. This contract is in effect until June 29, 2023, and PRT wishes to purchase 60 new laptops. This equipment will be used for maintenance, tech aides, and trainers throughout PRT. It's our recommendation that the contract be awarded under the same terms and conditions of the CoStars contract 003-051 to Dell Marketing LP in the estimated amount of $140,069. The staff has determined that the pricing for the Pennsylvania state contract is fair and reasonable and consistent with the current funds budgeted. Any questions?
Any questions from board members? Okay, seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve the bid.
So moved.
And I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank
The
you.
next, we have a resolution, I believe, as Inez is presenting. Inez, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. Good morning, Madam
Sure.
Chair, board members. The resolution in front of you is to extend the agreement with Trans-America Training Management Incorporated for Oracle/PeopleSoft training services. In May of 2018, Port Authority of Allegheny County, DBA, Pittsburgh Regional Transit, hereinafter referred to as PRT, issued an RFP for same. And that services included the establishment of training objectives and measurement of the training, development of training courses and the associated material, as well as conducting the training. In September 2018, Port Authority issued, or rather the board issued, awarded the training or the services to Trans-America Training Management Incorporated for an initial term of 3 years with the option to extend the agreement for 2 additional years at the sole discretion of the authority, and the cost of that agreement was $200,000. In 2021, the board authorized the exercise of the first option year to extend the agreement to November 1, 2022, with no increase to the not to exceed amount of the agreement. Once again, PRT has determined it is in their best interest to extend the agreement, exercising the second option year to November 1, 2023, and not to increase the not to exceed amount. So therefore, it would remain at the $200,000. Madam Chair and board members, do you have any questions for me?
Okay, are there any questions for Inez? Thank you for that presentation.
Thank you.
Seeing none, I'll take a motion for approval.
So moved.
And I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you very much. I believe the last resolution, Jeff will be handling, and Jeff, I think you're also doing the presentation thereafter. So do we want to go ahead with the resolution, please?
I am. Thank you very much. Good morning. So in the before times, May 2019, the board authorized the award of the agreement of 1807 to Masabi LLC. Some of you may be aware this is for our mobile ticketing project. That was for our initial 3-year term of the project of $2,850,000, which expires next month. We are now requesting that the board authorize the extension into the first option year of that contract, increasing the total to $3,658,735. Couple notes I'll make on this one. This includes 3 kind of key considerations. With the new UPass contract being signed with for new universities coming on, this includes the UPass revenue share aspect, which we had listed as a future item in the original contract. It also includes some protections for Masabi if we ever have to go into a temporary free fare time period, since all of their revenue is based on revenue share, and that protects Masabi, as we had a couple months ago. And then finally, project costs for the next phase of our implementation. So we're getting close to finishing up the primary implementation, and we're excited to start looking forward to the future parts. So subject to any questions from the board, we respectfully request that this resolution go to the full board. Thank you.
Thank you. So are there any questions for Jeff regarding the mobile ticketing? Seeing none, I'll take a motion for approval of the resolution,
So moved.
and I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Very good. Thank you very much, Jeff. And would you like to begin your presentation?
I would, and before I would like to also thank the committee for approving the bids. We're really committed to providing the tools that our folks around the agency need, and the Microsoft licensing and those laptops are really critical for folks around the agency to continue to do their jobs effectively. So we appreciate you taking that to the board. And continuing on that thread, the training that Inez presented is really key to keep our skill set up to date. So thank you for those.
Oh, no
So,
problem, Jeff. And I do think, I do, before you say that, I do think that I can speak for myself as the chair of technology committee. I've been very pleased with how technology has improved. I know there's always room for improvement in every capacity, but I think we've gone light years, and I'm looking forward to what's coming next. So thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like to talk just about 5 things around mobile ticketing services, the implementation that's been going on. The first thing I'd like to present, and I'd like to thank Ellie Newman for this, the data research on this, is looking at the amount of mobile tickets that we've seen used since we went into soft launch last August. And it's important to note that we're almost organically growing. We're not really publicizing the mobile services until it's across the whole system, which I'll talk about later. So this includes our bus and our incline. And we had established a first-year goal of about a 10% adoption rate once the whole system was live. And we're pretty excited to see that in June, we actually had a 14% use of the mobile ticket. And again, it really just includes the bus and the incline. Now, it is important to note that most of the UPass activity is on the traditional fare media of the Connect card system, and that settles down a little bit in June, July, and August. So we do expect this fall to these numbers to settle back into the 11-12% range. But even in our conversations with Masabi this week, they were quite excited to see our adoption rate being this strong, really without significant promotion yet, growing organically and only being on part of the system. So one of the aspects to Ready to Ride, which is the Port Authority app, is that we engage with other third-party apps who are able to resell our tickets for us, as sometimes they provide other functions that folks prefer to use. One of those third-party apps is the Transit app. And I won't go into all of the data sets here, but one I found interesting when we were talking with those folks a week or so ago is that they're finding about 68,000 of our riders are opening Transit every month. And what's really surprising about that number is that it's actually exceeding the pre-lockdown numbers. So even though our ridership is still working its way back in, folks' use of these apps like the Transit app are coming back loud and clear. And not only are they selling tickets for us, but they're using our what's called our GTFS data feed that shows where our buses are, how crowded they are. and folks are able to use that data and actively using these mobile services, whether through Ready to Ride, our True Time app, or in this case, the Transit app. So the third thing like to talk with you today about is our UPass implementation. As you may be aware, Pitt, Chatham, and CMU are on our Connect card system, and they're going to continue using that for the time being while we start slowly with some new universities coming on. I always struggle with what order to put these logos on the screen, so I decided this time I would include the year that each university was founded. So Duquesne in 1878, which if you're not aware, Duquesne actually gave birth to Carlow University in 1929, and then Point Park joined the city in 1960. So Duquesne has been a great partner with us for the past couple of months doing a pilot. Both Duquesne and Carlow are nearing readiness to go live this fall using Ready to Ride for their student population to ride the bus and the rail system on the new UPass. Now, Point Park is working through their agreement with their board, so we expect them to start a pilot later this fall and potentially starting a live action in the spring, starting it with our January semester. So we're really excited to have all three of these new schools coming on board with a new UPass contract and being able to bring them up pretty quickly, really, with the Ready to Ride service. This has probably been one of the most challenging aspects of our project, and that's the light rail. The validator, which you see our hand model holding there in the bottom corner, needs to go through a very rigorous certification process to be installed on the rail vehicles. To say that it's been a slog is an understatement. It's been quite a process to make sure that the melt test, the heat test, the vibration test, et cetera, all pass. And it's not just the validator itself, it's every bit of the wiring and connectors and plastic wraps and everything that go through this rigorous certification. Knock on wood, we're getting very close to that certification. We have most of the wiring done now. Some of it's being installed on the vehicles themselves in preparation for, we're looking later this fall to actually start installing the validators on the rail vehicles themselves. Once that's completed, we'll be able to open up the light rail on Ready to Ride for our entire customer base. In the good news side of this past week and a half, the team has been out installing validators at some of the high platforms, and you'll see one on the other side there. So these are getting ready for when the rail validators get on the vehicles. We'll be able to activate use on both the platforms and within the vehicles. So again, there's an asterisk beside that coming Q4 2022, because we're still working our way through the certification process. And boy, it's been a slog, but we're getting closer on that one. So last but not least, let's talk a little bit about cash digitization. This has been one of the key aspects when we set out to do this project. We wanted to make sure that we weren't hampering any of our customers who might not have smartphones or might not have bank accounts. So as you may remember from some prior presentations, we have a few gaps in our service. This map here is just a representative showing where you can get a Connect card or work with a retailer to update your Connect card. We're excited that once we get the rail services done, we are also on the same timeline to be able to activate some other features and functions to help those folks who might not have a phone or might not have a bank account to upload cash to their Ready to Ride account and use our services. So those features that were built into the mobile ticketing project are also right on track and timeline to be activated in the Q4 of this year. So we're very excited to get that, noting that equity is a key aspect from the very beginning with this project so that we weren't impacting negatively any of our customer base. That concludes my quick update of 5 key things on the mobile ticketing. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. This is super exciting, and I'm really pleased to hear of the work that's being done to begin to wire the rail vehicles. If there's any questions of board members, you can have them now, please.
Yeah, it's John. One of my observations is that the system seems to be working pretty well. And, feedback and drivers I've talked to say the system's working pretty well. The only time there's any confusion, some people think they can use their Connect card on them, which they can't, obviously. But so I just wanted to show up my observation on that. And I have had questions about when are they going to be on the rail, and you've answered those questions. So thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Jen.
Great. Any more questions or comments for Jeff from the board members? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to thank everyone for participating in our board meetings on behalf of all the chairs and the members of the PRT board. This concludes our committee meetings for today, and we'll see everyone at our next regular meeting and then for committees in September. So thank you very much, and we'll adjourn the meetings for today. Thank you.
See everyone. Have a